Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. There are still nearly 2 months until the new administration takes over, and already global markets and international leaders and the Americans who are paying attention are bracing themselves for a set of economic policies from the incoming Trump administration that could be brutally costly, both to the American people and the global economy. And what makes this all so weird is that, well, they're basically exactly what Trump said he was going to do. Now, there were huge parts of the Trump agenda the former president and his campaign tried to distance themselves from. If you think of Project 2025, which Trump said he'd never heard of, had nothing to do with, and now he's hiring the mastermind behind it to run the powerful Office of Management and Budget. Trump played coy about plenty of stuff like that in the campaign, right? But he was clear and consistent about the central ideas for the economy. Mass deportations would extract a brutal human and economic cost. Using tariffs to inaugurate the kind of trade war we haven't seen in probably a century. And then a sort of late addition in the last few months of the campaign, deputizing the world's richest man to look for trillions of dollars to unilaterally cut out of the U.S. budget, all of which would be colossally destructive and unprecedented. And again, they did not hide the ball on this stuff. They were very upfront about all that. Even as virtually every reputable economist in America, including 23 Nobel laureates, blasted that economic plan as a disastrous recipe for higher prices, slower economic growth, even a recession or worse. And now, again, we're in the situation where bankers and analysts, CEOs, everyday Americans are kind of watching and just sort of hoping that the Trump White House will not do exactly what they said they would do. And oddly enough, there's a pretty concrete example of this exact same thing happening recently in a peer country. It happened in the United Kingdom back in 2022. You may have forgotten this, but that summer, Conservative Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced his resignation. After Brexit and COVID and then a whole host of scandals, his government had failed to stop inflation, the cost of living crisis in that country, something that happened to all sorts of countries in the developed world and wreaked political havoc. And he was succeeded by a fellow conservative named Liz Truss, the woman you see there, who promised this new economic agenda that was dubbed Trussonomics. And she was explicit, right? Her plan to restore Britain to greatness was massive cuts to taxes on corporations, bankers' bonuses, and wealthy incomes. And the idea was that those wealthy job creators would fuel economic growth. And in the meantime, to make up for the monumental amount of lost revenue from the tax cuts, the Tory government would just borrow heavily to cover its expenses. Now, critics called her plan casino economics and Robin Hood in reverse. They said it would be a windfall for the rich. It would deepen income inequality, all while, crucially, weakening the British pound and short-circuiting interest rates. But right-wing politicians love the plan, including the former deputy director of Trump's National Economic Council.
The new British Prime Minister Liz Truss has laid out a terrific supply-side economic growth plan, which looks a lot like the basic thrust of Kevin McCarthy's Commitment to America plan. The sooner her plan is implemented, the faster Britain will climb out of the doldrums. And just as Liz Truss is overturning Boris Johnson, the GOP seeks to overturn Joe Biden.
Right, so that's the idea. The economy is moribund, it's in the doldrums. You need this sort of shock therapy from a right-wing policy apparatus to shock the country back into prosperity. And to their credit, in England, they really did it. As soon as Truss moved into 10 Downing Street that September, she put her budget plan into effect. And within weeks, the results were clear.
Prime Minister, it sounds like you're saying crisis, what crisis?
I'm not saying that at all. I think we're in a very serious situation.
Liz Truss was speaking for the first time since the mini-budget last week, which led to a collapse in the value of the pound, higher interest rates and extreme volatility on the financial markets.
This is something that you see in developing countries going through difficulties. You normally do not see this in a G7 economy.
And yet, Liz Truss pulls it off, right? She sank the British economy overnight, just as critics said she would. The British pound plummeted to new lows against the dollar. Bank and mortgage interest rates spiked, precisely as predicted. There were huge protests. Market went crazy. Efforts by Truss's top financial minister to calm the markets didn't inspire much confidence.
But I can be frank. I know the plan put forward only 10 days ago has caused a little turbulence. I get it. I get it. We are listening and have listened. And now I want to focus on delivering the major parts of our growth package.
So this conservative economic program proved to be so unpopular so fast that the government plummeted in popularity overnight. And as Truss and her ministers kept doing what they said they were going to do, they were transparent about it. A British tabloid started live streaming a head of lettuce, asking viewers which would last longer, the salad vegetable or the prime ministership of Liz Truss. And 44 days after Liz Truss took office, the lettuce won.
We set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit. I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party.
It took only a month and a half for Truss to do exactly what she planned to do with the British budget. It sank the British economy. It made her the shortest-serving prime minister in history, congratulations, with the lowest approval rating ever. In fact, her conservative successor, Rishi Sunak, basically walked away entirely from Trussonomics, but that was not enough because this year, he and his party still suffered a historic loss of power in parliamentary elections because Tory politics had become absolutely radioactive. Okay, so that's what happened in the UK. And I'll just say up front, there's lots of differences between their parliamentary system and our different branches of government, the checks and balances and the veto points and the presidential system. But we're here in the U.S., right, awaiting the inauguration of Donald Trump, who was elected by voters basically begging for relief from high prices, who openly plans an inflationary trade war, with tariffs so insane that even Canada's most famous right-wing politician, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, said they were like a family member stabbing you in the heart this week. Mexico's president sent Trump an open letter blasting the tariff threat, suggesting the U.S. would face punishing tariffs and retaliation, which is usually how this goes. And still, many Americans seem to be taking Trump neither seriously nor literally on this campaign promise. If you're one of them, you might want to take note of a Trump administration appointment today. Trump announced his choice to be the U.S. trade representative, a lawyer named Jamieson Greer. Now, Greer previously served as chief of staff to Trump's former U.S. trade representative, Robert Lighthizer. He's the architect of that tariffs they did the last time around on $370 billion worth of Chinese imports. Those tariffs, as we reported on the show, spurred a trade war, nearly broke the backs of American farmers who lost access to their top Asian market. Just like the Tories and Truss in London 2 years ago, Donald Trump has told us what he plans to do. And just like them, the critics have said, this looks like it's going to be devastating if you do it. And now I guess we just wait, right, to see if we're about to enter the finding out phase of the story.